Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Killer Headshot, and it's been a little while since I've created any content on the channel, but I'm back, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with the PS5 8 months later down the line. What do I think, and to be honest, I think the PS5, hardware wise, they've done an amazing job. I think it's hitting all the sort of areas that needed to be hit to be able to create a next gen console, as far as I'm concerned. So it's got a 8-core 16 thread Zen processor in there, and the IPC on that processor, essentially the power of that processor, clock for clock, is up there, and it's got enough cores and enough threads to be able to handle high frame rate gaming. So CPU beast, essentially. RAM, you got 16 gigs of DDR6, so crazy bandwidth on the RAM, which is shared across gaming and the home screen. And then you've got the GPUs, a 10 teraflop RDNA 2 GPU, with ray tracing capabilities. So hardware wise, you got the SSD as well, which is the fastest in the console game. Around 5,500 megabytes per second uncompressed, and then 9,000 something compressed. So it's literally hitting every single area where the previous generation of consoles were weaker than what we've got today. So the actual power of the machine, amazing. Design, it's a little bit big, but I think the design is very next gen, so it's a little bit big, but they're going to make it slim, so I'm not too bothered about the size. It's not crazy, like it's not on a mobile air conditioning unit, but yeah, obviously it is quite big, so but it's not crazy big, and they will bring out slimmers later on, so I'm not bothered about that. And I think the design is next gen, so great. The controller, amazing, as we all know. It's got the the left and right triggers, which have the ability to become harder to push. They've got certain levels of resistance depending on what sort of environment you're in, what sort of game you're playing. So I think that's amazing, and the haptics are second to none. It's the best controller, in my opinion, that's out there at the moment. So it's a truly next generational leap when it comes to controller. Great. So that's amazing. So hardware, I have no qualms with the machine. I think they've really gone for it this generation, and I think we've got a great canvas to be able to have some truly next gen experiences. So hardware out the way, no problem. The only software, the home screen, I think it's not perfect, and it's going to need a couple updates to streamline it so that it just feels right when it comes to general navigation. But I think the home screen, it feels next gen as well. So they've hit a lot of markers here when it comes to creating a next generational sort of leap when it comes to gaming consoles. So yeah, the home screen, very clean and futuristic, and feels like a next gen home screen. So yeah, that's that side of things. But obviously what you guys really want to hear about is the games, and I feel there's not many games when it comes to next generational games. So we've got Returnal, we've got Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and we've got some of those kind of cross-gen next-gen games, but I don't count them as next-gen game. I just call them cross-gen. Obviously, with what they are, it is what it is. So I don't really count like Call of Duty, Cold War, Assassin's Creed, Valhalla. I don't really count those games as next-gen games. They're great games, but they just seem like PS4 Pro games. It's not quite a full generational leap for me. You got the Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and I think again it's not truly pushing into the next generational direction. But yes, Returnal. I think Returnal is doing something that the Xbox doesn't have software-wise. The Xbox has got you know, Game Pass and all these things, but they've not released a proper next gen game. And I feel that Returnal and Ratchet and Clank are sort of more on the side of proper next gen games. I think Returnal even more so. So with Returnal, I think I'm very impressed with that, but it's just not enough. You know, it's one game. So I think Returnal's a great game. It's extremely challenging. It's got a new way of playing where you don't get your save points, but certain aspects of, you know, the environment and what you've achieved remain the same. So you've got these sort of unofficial save points in some sort of sense. It's not a full-on save point. It's not a full sort of like snap picture of where you was, you know, when you go back to playing the game again, but you know, certain aspects will still remain. You know, certain things you've done will still be in place. For example, if you kill the boss, the first boss, you don't need to go back and kill him again. You've killed him. It's like real. It's trying to be like real life to some degree, but yeah, you don't have to go back and kill Frank if you've killed him already. So that's a great relief, because he's a very hard boss to kill, coming from, you know, numerous different games. I find bosses hard to kill in general. I mean, that's the whole point, right? But yeah, so I mean, in that aspect, it's kind of cool because you're experiencing something new there, and I think that the general look and feel of the environment, it feels alive. It feels alive. That environment doesn't feel static like what you find on some of the older PS4 games. You know, graphically they've done a lot of things to make that environment just feel alive. So that feels next gen, and the graphics are beautiful, and it's almost 4K, but it's not quite 4K, but it's like not far off, you know. So the general graphical presentation is amazing. So and the gameplay, you know, obviously the gameplay is amazing. It's just in my opinion, it's quite flawless, to be honest, in general, because everything just works. You know, it's just a highly challenging, beautifully presented game, and with an environment that feels alive, with great, you know, mini bosses and bosses, and you know, general sort of, you know, the general application of the game is all great. So it's a good game. But what I need to say is, it's not just about, you know, one game. It's about a multitude of games. You need to have a small little lineup of games to quench people's thirsts. Returnal was quenching my thirst when it comes to just having one game to play. But once I finish that game, then what? We still got to wait for certain games to come out. You know, like the new Horizon Forbidden West, and Gran Turismo 7, and we've got, you know, Dying Light 2, and we've got Far Cry 6. So there's certain, you know, some of these games that we're still waiting for, in my opinion, not truly next gen games, but they're heading in the right direction. And I think the Horizon is going to be like a next gen game, but it's not fully a PS5 exclusive. So to me, it's not 100%, but I put it above a cross-gen game. Even though it is like a cross-gen game, I still put it above from what I've seen so far. So we've got some good things to look forward to, but they've been pushed back. So certain things have been pushed back, and you know, that's what leads me into the next part of this conversation. Well, not conversation, this chat that I'm giving to you guys is, we are still waiting for the obviously the expansion capability of the machine to be unlocked on a software level. So they've got the beta out, and you're able to install these M.2 drives, and it's working perfectly fine, and that's great. So it means that we're not far off. But why is it taking this long? I mean, all in all, I think it's going to be about 10 months in total when they finally drop a software update to be able to just allow everybody to just install, you know, an expansion M.2 drive that works for all the next gen games. Yeah, I know that we don't have enough games that are next gen games, but it would have been nice if they could have sort of had that expansion slot, you know, ready for us shortly after release, but they've not been able to do that for whatever reason. So that's a bit of a shame. But I'm just glad that it's on the horizon and it won't be very long. So that's a bit of a shame, but again, like I said, it's clearly documented. They've got the beta out and it's all working perfectly fine, so I've not got a problem with that. But yeah, I mean, my opinion so far is that I'm still happy. The backwards compatibility sort of mode on these PS4 games, I need to cover that as well. I'm not 100% happy with that, but obviously they've taken their time to roll it out to make it happen. So they've done PS5 versions of certain games, so you can use more of the capabilities of the machine because it's using the PS5 app as opposed to the PS4 app that's been tweaked to try and get more power out of the game. So, but it's a bit of a mismatch when it comes to what they're doing. So on one hand, they've got developers creating PS5 app versions of the previous game, and then you've got other developers that are just tweaking the current version of the game, which is already backwards compatible with the PS5 to get more out of the game, so the PS5 can use some more of its power. But there's a slight inconsistency there. It's like, what do you want to do? Me personally, it would have been better if they just made every developer just do PS5 app versions of the game, which creates less limitations to what the game can do. But each developer is to their own, and they do what they want to do. But overall, it's not terrible. As long as most of the main games that we want to play on the previous generation are able to be played without any glitches, with increased frame rates and increased resolutions, then essentially that's the main two things that we want to see with the backwards compatibility. I think that's more than enough. The fact that you can still play the game and you can play it at a high level of graphic fidelity and frame rate. So I think the main talking point for the backwards compatibility is to be able to achieve what the previous game couldn't achieve on the previous platform, which is the golden 60 FPS. So that's great. I just feel that Xbox have implemented this slightly better, but again, with Xbox, with their boost mode and with their implementation of getting those backwards compatible games working with a higher frame rate, I just think, and resolution and all that stuff and little graphical tweaks, I think they've done slightly better than Sony, but they've given Sony that competition to allow Sony to do better. So I think in that department each console are very close to where they need to be. So I just think there's been too much of a focus on previous generation on the backwards compatibility. I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. It's just like, we need fully next generational games, and I think on one hand Sony's done better by showing us a couple of truly next gen games like Ratchet and Clank and Returnal, but I just think that's not enough for Sony even. And I think where's Xbox's next gen games? I think I just think they've not been prepared in regards to getting the developers to start working on these games in time for the release of these consoles. As simple as that. So we're just here waiting, and it's going to be ultimately at least a year until we actually see at least a little bunch of next gen games, truly next gen games. So that's my take on the PS5 so far. What I think of it, I think it's hitting most of the key points of contention, and I feel that the biggest problem is the number of truly next gen games that we have access to, and that's essentially it. I'm happy with everything else for the most part, and I think that the only way is up. That I just think Sony need to make sure they stay focused, because it feels like they just got a bit lazy recently, even though they've put a lot of work in as well. But I just think they've let off the gas slightly. I just think they need to, moving forward, just put their foot on the gas a bit more in it when it comes to just, you know, making sure that we've got, you know, some proper a fair library of next gen games that are working. We're still waiting for Cyberpunk. Don't even go there. We're still waiting for a PS5 app version of Cyberpunk, a truly next gen version. Well, it's not truly next gen, but, you know, like a proper PS5 app version of Cyberpunk, because the PS5 is still stuck in that realm of PS4 app version of the game, and it's holding back the PS5 because that game is demanding, very demanding, probably one of the most demanding games that you can get today. So it would be really interesting to see how that game will run on the PS5 with a PS5 app, with some real thought put into place with that as well. But again, we was promised this PS5 app version, and we've waited longer than we're supposed to have waited for it. So I think for me, it's just the waiting game. I think they've just not given us things in the correct time scale, overall, in more of the area of games. So that's it. That's my final thoughts on it. Sound off in the comments. Let's create a discussion in the comment section. What do you think? Of the PS5 so far, even if you don't own one, just from your experience of what you've seen content online and stuff like that, what do you think, and what you're hearing from people you may know that have the machine, and people that have the machine, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and cheers. Enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you.